Yo, what's going on, guys? So before we get into the video, I actually want to talk about how I've recently started a YouTube membership. Reason being is because me and Surfbone had made a reaction video to Death Battle's finale, but we realized if we uploaded it publicly, it would get taken down just like my last stream did, and like some other people we know streams have gotten taken down from reacting to Death Battle's videos. And it's honestly just the BS that Death Battle does with copyright and everything. So to circumvent that, we started the membership, and we're going to upload it privately for anyone that pays the $5. And if you do that, you'll also gain access to all of my debates, and we might even do a monthly stream for everyone that subscribes to the membership. You also have access to a Discord channel where you'll get updates on any content, animation, thumbnails, anything like that. And if you actually subscribe to the $10 one, we'll let you even vote on which videos I should do first. So $10 one's not really necessary or anything. It's just kind of some extra flavor for those that want to support the channel a little bit more and also gain the benefit of voting on videos. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. So I'll just let the video play from here. See ya.
いいだろう。第4次任海大戦、ここに宣戦を布告する。
第4次任海大戦じゃと？正気か？
今度は戦場で会おう。
Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm bringing you yet another controversial video where I will be taking a deep dive into a legendary versus matchup between two who many to believe some of the fastest characters in the entire Naruto verse, the Watery Grave, the Silver Slicer, Tobirama Senju, being pitted against none other than the Yellow Flash and Naruto's dad, Minato Namikaze. Speed will obviously not be the only factor, even if an important one, but basically I'm going to format this video in a few ways, first talking about their alive Hokage variations, and then compare their Edo variations including both Sage Mode and Ninetales Cloak Minato as well. I will break each character up by categories including speed, attack potency, hacks, or abilities, and any other skill that could potentially play a factor in the fight. So without further ado, we're going to begin with alive Tobirama's attack potency. During the Konoha Crush arc, Hiruzen and Orochimaru had their battle on the rooftop where Orochimaru summoned both Hashirama and Tobirama to do battle against Hiruzen. There really isn't anything of major prevalence during this fight, but we do see during the encounter that both Hashirama and Tobirama were capable of reacting to and tagging Hiruzen on multiple occasions, and even at one point Tobirama was actually able to stalemate Hiruzen's fire style technique with his own water style technique, despite there not being any major bodies of water nearby or available for Tobirama to access. This is noted to be impressive by one of the nearby Anbu spectators. It's also worth mentioning that this attack doesn't necessarily scale to old Hiruzen due to the fact that the water has a typing advantage against fire. Both Edo Hashirama and Edo Tobirama are directly stated to be weaker than their alive variations during this fight, so that is also something to take into account. None of the more major feats, during Tobirama's battle with Madara and Izuna, Tobirama was actually able to Flying Thunder God slice Izuna in half. This is notable because at the time, Izuna and Madara were actually stated to be the top of their clans, and in some translations they were actually stated to be equal. If I'm being honest, there is a pretty severe lack of attack potency feats for Tobirama, but there is a feat in particular that is one of the most insane AP feats in the entire war arc, so if you paid attention to what Tobirama did during the Jubido fight, you're already probably aware of what I'm referring to. But since it's such a massive increase in comparison to what we've already talked about so far, I'm actually going to wait until later in the video to explain what exactly I'm referring to. The only other scaling that exists for Tobirama's AP is not definitive by any means, but is still worth mentioning. When Orochimaru revives the past Hokage during the war arc, there is a point during their conversation where Tobirama lifts a singular finger, causing a massive influx of chakra to fill the room. The mere presence of this chakra made everyone, including Minato, Hiruzen, Sasuke, and Jugo, look over in surprise. But Suigetsu in particular froze in terror. This is by far the greatest reaction we've ever seen Suigetsu have from somebody's simple chakra presence. This is impressive because it potentially scales Tobirama above Sasuke, Killer Bee, the Raikage, Orochimaru, and any other character that Suigetsu interacted with up to that point. It's funny because he literally only lifted a finger as well. I'd be curious to see what the reaction would have been if Tobirama used more of his chakra. The final feat that I will bring up here happens during Tobirama's brief encounter with revived Sage Mode Madara, where he tries to assassinate him with a kunai. Madara specifically goes out of his way to divert and dodge every single attack that Tobirama throws at him. This may suggest that Madara believes Tobirama is strong enough to damage him, because in previous fights, He was more than willing to block or outright tank multiple blows, such as his fight against the Raikage or his fight against the Biju. Those last two arguments are more speculative than anything, but as I said, it's still kind of worth mentioning. And it may seem like I'm stretching a bit for Tobirama's AP, but I will do the exact same thing, if not to a greater degree, in the Minato section as well. But anyway, we will now move on to Minato's AP. Minato, similar to Tobirama, also surprisingly has a lack of AP feats, but to name off some of the more prevalent ones, Minato was able to damage Yellow Mask Obito during their fight by slamming a big ball Rasengan into his back, which led to his defeat. In reference to the Rasengan, it's described in the 4th data book to have an impact equal to that of a small meteor. The base Rasengan from both Naruto and Konohama also has been shown to literally one-shot the pads of pain, so seeing as Minato has a more advanced version of that jutsu, it is safe to assume he would be capable of doing the same. Pain himself is a character who can withstand the Six Tails Biju Bomb of Naruto, which is actually calced at around island levels of force. Jiraiya's massive Rasengan is also stated to be capable of easily carving away a mountain in the 3rd data book, and although we don't see Minato create this jutsu in base, we do see him do it during the war arc within the KCM form, where he showed the capability to create a much more massive Rasengan than even the one Jiraiya created. This means Minato does already have the knowledge to create a Rasengan that big, but it does not prove he has the chakra to create one by himself in base. But considering that Minato does use multiple extremely high chakra costing jutsu, such as summoning Gamabunta and the Flying Thunder God, I do believe Minato is likely to be able to create a massive Rasengan in base as well. During the Koksu fight, Naruto unleashed his Rasen Shuriken, which was actually stated to rival the 4th Hokage in power in one of the chapter synopsis. This is pretty assumptuous, but Madara was also capable of absorbing a massive particle style from Onoki, the same particle style that would have erased 5 Kage Summit Sasuke. Onoki, whilst being amplified by the Raikage, was even able to penetrate Madara's Susanoo clone, and when amplified by Tsunade, he was able to blast away multiple Susanoo clones then as well. Not only this, but Onoki was going to vaporize the entirety of Genbu the Turtle Island. There's even a direct statement that Onoki breaks down matter to a near molecular level, so we can then utilize that to figure out how much energy is required to break down a mole, and estimating the size of the Turtle Island, we can actually come to a number of how much energy is actually being output by Onoki here. The blast Onoki was about to release was stated by Akatsuchi to be capable of obliterating the entire island. So if we lowball and assume that the turtle is the size of a small island, despite Onoki initially mistaking it as just a legitimate island, and the fact it actually is massive, seeing as it potentially has even mountains on the back of it, we can lowball again and say that the island is entirely made out of flesh rather than the dense material clearly seen on its back, such as a shell, spikes, trees, and potentially those rocky mountains I mentioned before. We can actually figure up the joule count comes to what you see on screen, which, going by both character stats and versus Battle Wiki's attack potency tiering, would place them in the small country level range, which is between 1 and 7 teratons of TNT. Why is all this relevant though? Well, because a massive Rasen Shuriken was used against Madara and absorbed by him using the same Rinnegan absorption utilized against Onoki's particle style. But this time, Madara actually becomes flustered by the power for a moment and claims that it possessed too much energy, which is by far the greatest reaction Madara has ever had from absorbing one attack, which means it had an even greater effect than the giant laser beam particle style Onoki sent at him. I believe this would scale the massive Rasen Shuriken and maybe even the normal one above the particle style due to it directly showing to have more energy. It is also stated in the 3rd data book, where it discusses Kakuzu and Kakashi's battle, that the reason their lightning style attacks stalemated was due to the chakra amounts infused into each respective jutsu was exactly even. It also explains that if the chakra infused into one jutsu without a typing disadvantage is greater than the opposing jutsu, it means that that initial jutsu would be more powerful. This proves that the more chakra manipulated into the jutsu, the more powerful it becomes. And seeing as Madara had a greater reaction to the Sage Rasen Shuriken from Naruto than he did with the particle style, this directly implies that the Rasen Shuriken is just simply more potent. It even has a similar property to the near molecular deconstruction of Onoki, where it's stated instead of molecular decomposition, it breaks down opponents down on a cellular level and directly attacks both vital points and the exterior body. Both bypass conventional durability, but the Rasen Shuriken is simply stronger. Another counter-argument I thought of in my head is someone could easily say that Naruto's Rasen Shuriken simply got stronger, but if you read the 4th data book page about the Rasen Shuriken, they actually refer to the Rasen Shuriken during the Pain arc as being flawless, meaning that it already reached its peak in strength. But this, of course, is not true, as Naruto has many more stronger variations of the Rasen Shuriken later, like the giant one he used against Madara, or even the magnet release ones he was using against Kaguya. So, as I included in the skeptical arguments for Tobirama, this argument in particular is also skeptical, but it is still possible that the small Rasen Shuriken that Naruto uses against Katsu does still have more chakra than tons of other abilities like the Rasengan, and it's also stated to be both the highest level of shape manipulation and impossible to survive its impact, potentially making it above everyone within the third databook's capability of surviving. It's also stated multiple times by people to have an absurd amount of concentrated chakra into it, similar to that of the Chidori. Kakashi also directly states that Naruto had actually surpassed him during the Katsu fight due to Naruto's Rasen Shuriken. The only other potential attack potency feats I can think of from Minato happens during the Third Great Ninja War during his encounter with Killer B in A, where it is heavily implied that the Raikage's cloak would have been pierced if not for B saving him with his partial transformation tentacle. The partial transformation itself was easily sliced through, however, meaning that Minato probably scales above both the Raikage and partial 8 tails of Killer B during the Third War. The only issue with this is that it has been so many years since that battle, so it's easily possible that both B and the Raikage got stronger, but this is by no means confirmed, so it is still potentially true. We do see the Raikage lifting weights, however, so that does pretty much confirm he trains even as a Raikage. That's about all I can think of for Minato's AP, so we're now going to move on to durability. If I'm being honest, Tobirama barely gets tagged in the series, and when he does, it's always by some broken character like Jubito or Madara and their truth-seeking orbs, so it's basically impossible to scale his durability, and a similar thing is true with Minato as well. The only known durability feat we have for Minato is that he's capable of withstanding the Paper Bomb Baby Blast that Obito planted on Naruto's blanket during the Nine Tails invasion, which caused an explosion that destroyed an entire house. Minato was barely able to escape this explosion, almost withstanding the horrific wooden shrapnel from the planks. Seriously though, a normal paper bomb was a threat to Minato, and he unironically got pierced by a splinter from the house. So needless to say, both of their durabilities are not exactly impressive. But honestly, who needs durability when you have the Flying Thunder God and their speed? Speaking of speed, we're actually going to go ahead and go into the most important part of the video, that being the speed section. Because if we're being honest, the reason you came here is to see which of these characters is faster. Two of the most well-renowned speedsters and masters of Flying Thunder God being pitted head-to-head against each other just sounds so thematic. Anyway though, we'll begin with Minato's speed this time. To skip all the lesser impressive feats, Minato was able to outspeed Yellow Mask Obito and a young Raikage who can perform the light speed lariat, and he's also directly stated to be equal to the War Arc 4th Raikage in the databook. It's also stated by C during the Kage Summit that the Raikage's reaction speed is actually equal to Minato as well. The feat of Minato dodging the Raikage is actually calculated to be around 50 times FTL, which is actually the benchmark I use for the rest of the series in speed. Minato is also directly compared to KCM 1 Naruto on numerous occasions, twice by Killer B during both the Kasame and Raikage fights, and once by Tsunade during the Raikage fight, where Naruto performs such fast movement that they both just outright say that he looks like the Yellow Flash. The only other speed arguments that are relevant to the discussion is the statement where Kakashi thought he was seeing Minato when he saw KCM 2 Naruto save him from the Biju bombs. But this is a much more skeptical argument because in the actual panel it just looks like Kakashi is visually thinking KCM 2 Naruto looks like Minato, rather than just his speed being directly compared like the Raikage and the Kasame feats. The last and final argument I see people make for base Minato is that he is capable of reacting to Madara's truth-seeking orbs, the same truth-seeking orbs that were going to tag Guy. But this is wrong for numerous reasons. The first being that Guy is flying through the air, he's kicking the air to propel himself towards Madara. And based on a simple principle, air is significantly less dense than ground to kick off, so logically Guy should be much slower. Imagine you're swimming, right? You're moving through the water. How much faster is it to kick off of the side of the pool than it is to actually swim? That's because the pool is more solid, so obviously kicking through the air is even less solid than that, so you're going to be significantly slower than you would be while running on ground. This argument also struggles with the fact that Sage Mode Minato, right before this feat occurs, was on the unfortunate end of a horrific beating from Madara, meaning a should-be stronger and faster Minato was unable to react or combat Ten-Tailed Madara's physical movement speed, proving that the Truth-Seeking Orbs themselves do not scale to Madara's actual speed. This, in combination with both Lee and Gaara's capabilities to outspeed the truth-seeking orbs as well, basically confirms that the orbs in all actuality aren't really that fast. Minato also tells Guy not to worry about the truth-seeking orbs while he was flying to Madara, so the only reason he didn't dodge was because he was ordered to do so, which basically means we don't even know if the orbs actually even scale to 8th Gate Guy's airspeed even. If you read the 4th databook page about the truth-seeking orbs, you would have noticed that they describe them as high-speed projectiles. This may appear contradictory, but you have to actually understand the reason so many characters are able to perceive and react to these orbs is because if at any point they make contact with a character, it is made very clear that they would be erased regardless, even if they are an Edo Tensei. Complete existence erasure is the result of touching one of these orbs without Sage Mode, which basically means that Kishimoto kind of wrote himself into a corner on this one. It may be intended that the orbs are supposed to be fast or whatever, but because of their absolutely destructive nature and Kishimoto's unwillingness to just vaporize his main cast of characters, it makes sense why multiple people are able to dodge them. They also still may be high-speed projectiles as well. It could be that when they say high speed, they aren't necessarily referring to people as fast as like Gaara, Lee, Minato, which is also fine. That's about it for base Minato, so I will now talk about KCM and Sage Mode. The feats Minato has in KCM, in all honesty, aren't really that impressive. Pretty much the entire time KCM Minato is fighting in this form, he gets absolutely bullied alongside Ima, Sasuke, and KCM2 Naruto against Jubito. There are multiple points where Jubito just directly outspeeds him, such as this instance where he managed to perception blitz Minato with a truth-seeking orb, or this instance where he actually just blocked and tagged Minato with a truth-seeking rod that destroys his arm. The only other impressive speed feat I can think of in regards to KCM Minato is the feat where both him and Kakashi react to Black Zetsu at the exact same time, and the occasional combo attack Minato performs in conjunction with KCM2 Naruto and EMS Sasuke. So, for the most part, I think it's consistent to say Minato is somewhere around the Raikage and KCM1 Naruto level in speed in base, and in KCM form, he is around KCM2 Naruto level in speed as well. It's a shame that his best speed feats are honestly come in his base form, but that's just what we have to live with. Sage Minato also has nothing of worth speed-wise, as he barely uses it throughout all of his appearances, and the only time he had it through the war, he gets beaten up by Madara. So, once again, the Raikage 50 times FTL feat in scaling to KCM2 Naruto, Rinnegan Obito, and Kakashi is literally his best scaling that we have. Many people like to argue that Minato was dazed throughout the war arc, and whilst I won't say directly that this isn't true, it is worth to note that you can translate the original Raw manga page as saying Minato was simply sad at fighting Obito rather than in a daze, but I will grant it for the sake of the video, and say he was dazed throughout most of the usage of his KCM form up until the point Naruto cheers him up. If you read in the same databook page, it mentions that he was dazed, and it also says that Naruto actually managed to bring his spirits back up and shifted his mindset completely. The only feat that actually occurs with KCM Minato after his mindset change, funnily enough, is the feat where he's shown comparable to Kakashi, the same Kakashi that was previously shown capable of fighting with Rinnegan Obito multiple times throughout the war arc. Rinnegan Obito himself was shown comparable to KCM1 Naruto at one point, and was even maybe relative to KCM2. A lot of people actually think that Obito held back during the entire fight against Kakashi, but if you actually go and look and read the chapter, Obito had full intention of murdering Kakashi and had yet to have his philosophical altering conversation with Naruto. So at this point in time, Obito is still evil as hell and uses multiple deadly techniques to try and murder Kakashi. The only time it actually says that he allowed Kakashi to do something to him is when Kakashi pierces him in the heart with his Raikiri. But I think a major reason Obito did this was not due to him having some mental attachment to Kakashi and was holding back against him. I believe it was more so of a mental warfare tactic to try and break Kakashi's spirit. I believe I've covered everything in regards to Minato's speed, but if you believe I missed any argument, make sure to drop it below. Anyway though, now it's time to talk about some of the most absolutely disgusting speed feats that Tobirama possesses. Just getting straight into it, Tobirama was directly able to react and combat Rinnegan Hashirama-celled Madara as soon as he got to the battlefield, and then Madara goes on to state that Tobirama actually boasted the fastest speed of any shinobi during their time, proving that Tobirama used to be faster than both Madara and Hashirama. Madara at this point had completely dismantled the full-powered Raikage along with the rest of the Kage who were relative to him in speed, and he was also capable of outright reacting and combating KCM2 Naruto. Now, some of you may try and argue that this Madara was amped from the Edo Tensei, and you might even cite the statement from Kabuto where he stated that he believes he created Madara beyond his prime. But if you actually just read a little bit further down the scan, you'll see that Madara questions Kabuto about whether or not he actually has knowledge about how powerful he was in his prime, to which Kabuto responds, "No, I don't, but I would like you to show me." Meaning Kabuto's statement doesn't actually know anything. He doesn't actually have the knowledge to make this claim to begin with, so we can just dismiss it as an unknowledgeable claim. This is further corroborated later on when Madara is revived. Hashirama states Madara's power is actually returning to his former prime, referring to his alive EMS variation, or more specifically, the one who he fought at the Valley of the End. The only refutation that I've heard to this argument is that when Hashirama says returning to former strength, he is simply referring to Rinnegan Madara, the Madara he fought previously during the war arc, rather than the one he fought during the Valley of the End. This interpretation is actually directly debunked by the fact that Rinnegan Madara was unable to break free of Hashirama's deity gates, but as soon as Madara was revived, he instantly broke free of the deity gates from the increase in power. This exact example is also shown with Ten Tails when it is held down by the deity gates, but as soon as Obito merges with it and becomes its Jinchuriki, he breaks out of it due to the increase in power. Why is this relevant though? Well, it's obvious that Hashirama believes Madara is returning to the strongest state he has ever seen him in, aka his prime. And if Hashirama believes he is only now beginning to return to that power, that means Hashirama fought a Madara who was once at this level before, and seeing as he was able to beat and pin the strongest Edo Madara we've seen up to this point, that means it cannot be any variation of Edo Madara, but rather the one he fought during the Valley of the End, aka alive EMS Madara. This basically confirms that an alive Hokage variation of Tobirama simply would be faster than the fastest and strongest version of Madara we have ever seen up to the point in the series, due to being stated as the fastest of his time. To reiterate, this would place Tobirama above both KCM2 Naruto and the Raikage, due to a weaker variation of Madara being capable of reacting and outspeeding both of them. If you thought that was the end of the scaling chain for Tobirama, you are in for a much longer ride. Tobirama during the Jubito fight has a plethora of feats that I'm just going to quickly display on screen and explain each one of them. In this scene you can see that Tobirama gets his arm tore off by Jubito, but on the very next page we're able to see that in the moment Tobirama was hit by Jubito once, he actually managed to place 5 explosive tags on him and a flying Thunder God seal that quite literally would go on to be the only reason that anybody in the entire fight lands a single hit on Jubito at all. I'm not joking, if Tobirama had not been in that fight, literally nobody there would have been able to touch him. He is single-handedly responsible for every individual attack that landed on Jubito. To show you what I'm talking about, there are 3 instances where Tobirama utilizes the seal in tandem with Naruto and Sasuke. He's able to react and combo with EMS Sasuke, KCM2 Naruto, and KCM2 Minato. Here's another feat where he does so with Naruto, making it possible for him to slam a Rasengan into his back. And another scene where he does it for both Minato and KCM2 Naruto, allowing them to hit Obito with their massive Rasengan they created. The final and most hilarious scene is the only other time Tobirama actually hits Jubito, and it's funny enough in the same sequence where KCM2 Naruto, EMS Sasuke, and KCM Minato all simply get blitzed by Jubito. Both KCM Naruto and EMS Sasuke here just get slammed in the face with his hands, and Minato had a truth-seeking orb planted on his arm without him even noticing, whilst he tried to save Naruto and Sasuke. It's at this point that Minato begins to reach for the orb, and before he can even grab it, a clone of Tobirama teleports to his position, grabs the orb before KCM Minato can, and then teleports back to his seal placed on Jubito, grabs him on the shoulder, and lets it explode before anyone there could react. Now I did say that I would grant the idea that Minato was dazed through this sequence, so I'm not saying that Tobirama is necessarily faster than full-powered KCM Minato because he performed significantly better than his dazed variation, but this does in fact place him above KCM2 Naruto and EMS Sasuke, and it also places him above Rinnegan Obito due to him being weaker than his Ten Tails form. This same Obito should also be comparable to War Kakashi and a non-dazed KCM Minato later in the war due to the Zetsu feat as mentioned before. So yeah, I believe that is about the end of the speed section, so now we'll move into their abilities. Obviously, both of these men have the capability to use their Flying Thunder God and Body Flicker, but it's actually confirmed by statements from Tobirama himself that Minato has actually improved upon his Flying Thunder God, and he also admits that Minato's Body Flicker technique is even faster than his. To clarify the first statement, it's pretty unclear as to what aspects Minato actually improved the Flying Thunder God on, but if I were to guess, some of the massive seals Minato used to teleport away the Ten Tails Biju bombs seem pretty ridiculous. And seeing as Minato is also stated to have learned multiple sealing techniques from Kushina, it would make sense that these seals he creates are simply able to transport away much larger and powerful techniques. It's also possible that Minato may have improved upon the chakra cost of the jutsu as well through the use of a more efficient seal, but since it's never directly stated what was improved on, it's basically impossible to determine. Minato's Body Flicker, as mentioned previously, is simply shown and stated to be faster than Tobirama's. The Body Flicker itself is accomplished by using chakra to temporarily vitalize the body, which generates much higher movement speeds. This ability enhances the user's travel speed by a significant amount, as shown with the Raikage when he used it to dodge Sasuke's Amaterasu. The ability does not enhance your reaction or combat speed, however, so those attributes will remain the same. If you're confused about the differences between reaction, travel, and combat speed, you should totally go watch Surfbone's different types of speed video where he dissects this exact topic. Other abilities Minato has includes the Rasengan and all of its variations I mentioned previously, and he also has access to both Sage Mode and Shadow Clones. The only issue with these abilities is that Minato does not generally use them too often in character, and when he does use them, he's not very good at it. His Sage Mode is self-admittedly not very sustainable, although he is a perfect Sage. It's also confirmed that Naruto during the Pain arc was directly stated to be better than both Jiraiya and Minato at Sage Mode. Other than that, Minato does probably have some ceiling he could potentially use in combat, but yeah, that's about as far as it goes for him. Tobirama, on the other hand, has a few abilities that are definitely worth mentioning. Firstly, he is a sensory type ninja, so that could potentially come in handy in the situation Minato tries to surprise attack him, but he also has access to the Flying Thunder God as mentioned before, and even the Edo Tensei. There's a pretty major misconception that Tobirama does not use the Edo Tensei and Tandem Paper Bomb Jutsu in character, but this is just outright debunked by Tobirama himself, as he says that he created the Edo Tensei Jutsu and the Tandem Paper Bombs to go with each other, implying that he does use it in character. This is also confirmed by Hiruzen when he refers to this combination attack landed on Jubito as Lord Second Special, once again implying this is something that Hiruzen has probably seen more than once. All Tobirama actually says about the combination attack is that he'd never actually used the Tandem Paper Bomb on himself before, which makes sense because if he did, he would literally die, which is why he combines it with the Edo Tensei, using the body of a fallen opponent to cast the Tandem Paper Bombs on. The Tandem Paper Bomb itself is a continuous paper bomb explosion, similar to that of Conan's 600 billion Paper Bomb C we saw against Obito earlier into Part 2. Each paper bomb summons more paper bombs, resulting in consecutive explosions until death. If you pay attention closely, in the panel where Tobirama blows up Jubito with this technique, it appears as if he shattered one of the deity gates in the background that had previously held down the Ten Tails. The reason this is impressive is because those same gates had previously withstood a multi-continental Biju bomb from the Ten Tails. This just outright displays that the Tandem Paper Bomb Jutsu potentially has more power than a Ten Tails Biju Bomb Blast. By far the best AP feat Tobirama has, and one of the reasons I believe he will win this matchup. After rereading both characters' appearance, it's clear to me that Tobirama simply outshines Minato in almost every category besides travel speed and I guess ceiling, both of which are not really going to be that useful in a fight against Tobirama. To put it plainly, both Jubito and Rinnegan Hashirama Celled Madara are superior in speed to KCM2 Naruto, as they both have feats of either outright blitzing or blocking and combating Naruto while in a weaker state. Meaning Tobirama, as a weakened Edo Tensei, simply can react and combat foes that are superior to the best speed scaling Minato has. The best speed scaling Minato has that isn't just a horrific misrepresentation of his ability. There are two statements from B that directly compare KCM Naruto in speed to the Yellow Flash. When Naruto blitzed Kasame, B literally thought Naruto was the Yellow Flash and that he had teleported just like him. When Naruto blitzed the Raikage, both B and Tsunade once again compare the feat Naruto performed to the Yellow Flash. And even worse for Minato, it's directly stated in the data book and by C that he's equal to the Raikage in both speed and reaction. So taking these four statements into consideration, it's by far the most consistent that base Minato is probably somewhere in the KCM1 Naruto range. There's of course the argument that Minato was stated in the data book to be praised by all shinobi to be the fastest. This is good, but if you pay particular attention to the wording, the only shinobi that could have praised him were the shinobi that were alive at the time, right? And the biggest issue with this statement is that it never clarifies if they're referring to Minato being the fastest ninja of all time or simply of his time. And seeing as there are many characters who just blatantly have better speed scaling than him, such as Tobirama and Hashirama, it makes sense that it would mean that the context refers to Minato being the fastest of his time rather than all time. Sage Minato's only speed feat is literally just getting blitzed and beat up by Jubidara, so unfortunately, as cool as the form is, it simply just has a lack of feats and statements to mean anything in regards to a versus matchup. The final form of KCM Minato does carry insane power that would easily be able to beat Tobirama if he were to connect with like a Ninetales Biju Bomb or something of that nature, but the issue is once again speed and durability. KCM Minato's only speed feats are just getting horrifically blitzed by Jubito and being on par with KCM2 Naruto and EMS Sasuke on a few occasions. There's also the Kakashi feat I mentioned earlier, which does scale him to Rinnegan Obito, but Rinnegan Obito is literally just weaker than Jubito anyway and gets reacted to and tagged by KCM2 Naruto. Tobirama being able to blitz and tag Jubito and being faster than Rinnegan Madara in his prime are simply too good of feats to be ignored, especially when both characters literally dispatched KCM2 Naruto, which is Minato's literal and absolute best speed scaling. This is also ignoring the statement from Kurama that just directly says that KCM2 Naruto surpassed both Kushina and Minato as well. This in combination with Minato's insane lack of durability feats allows me to come to the conclusion that if they were to fight, Minato would simply be sliced in half or blown to bits by Tobirama before he would even have a chance to react. I do not believe there is a single variation of Minato that can beat alive Hokage Tobirama or Edo Tobirama, so simply put, Tobirama destroys all forms of Minato 10 out of 10 times. I know this might anger some of the Minato fans out there, but you have to understand that simply having better travel speed and arbitrarily being better at some unknown aspect of one of Tobirama's jutsu does not overcome the sheer difference in physical ability between them. The only other thing I could see people try and bring up is that Tobirama lost to Kenkaku and Genkaku, but I don't know why people even see this as an anti-feat, considering there are literally characters with no anti-feats. You could try and cite the Darui fighting them in base as an anti-feat, but as soon as they went into their version 2 states, Darui wasn't able to do anything to them. This is also ignoring the fact that they are Edo Tensei nerfed, and that they also had an entire platoon of S-rank shinobi dedicated to murdering Tobirama to beat him. Oh, and did I mention that they're also literally Ninetales Jinchuriki, and the Raikage believe that nobody on the entire battlefield can beat them? Yeah, my bad, forgot to mention that one too. Anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed. This was a very anticipated video, but I'm now going to give you all a quick trailer for my next massive project that I've been working on for a few months now. If you guys enjoyed the editing for this video, Surfbone is actually my main man that did it for me. Anyways, guys, I will see you in the next one.